She laughed. Right there, at the table, in front of everyone. My Aunt Sandra put her wine glass down, looked around at 8 family members, and laughed like I had just told the funniest joke she had heard all year. Sweetheart, she said. That's just a fancy way of saying you manage schedules and order office supplies. They give everyone big titles now. It means nothing. 8 people heard that. My mother, my cousins, my uncle. People who had known me my entire life and who were now looking at their plates or their glasses or any neutral surface that meant they did not have to decide what their expression should be. I picked up my fork. I took a bite of my food. I said absolutely nothing. Not because she was right. Because what I knew, and what Sandra did not know, was that in exactly 11 days, everything she had just said in front of 8 people was going to become impossible to say again. My name is Claire Watson, 37 years old, 9 years at Meridian Group, one of the fastest growing logistics companies in the region. I had joined as an operations coordinator when the company had 42 employees in a single warehouse. 9 years later, we had 280 employees, 4 facilities, and a client list that included 3 of the largest retail chains in the country. I had not watched that growth happen. I had been one of the reasons it happened. Director of Operations was not a fancy title. It was the title of the person who had built the systems that allowed 280 people to function as one coordinated machine. The person who had redesigned the logistics infrastructure twice as the company scaled. The person the CEO called at 11 p.m. when something broke and needed to be fixed before morning. Sandra thought I managed schedules. Sandra had decided this 9 years ago and had never updated the decision. I had let her, not because I was a pushover. Anyone who has managed a 280-person operation understands that being a pushover is a luxury you cannot afford. But because Sandra operated on a simple principle that I had identified early, she believed what made her comfortable. Correcting her required more energy than she was worth. But something had changed. 11 days earlier, my CEO had called me into his office and told me that Meridian was being acquired, that the acquiring company, Vantage Logistics, 3 times our size, had completed their operational assessment. That their executive team had reviewed everything I had built and had asked, specifically, to retain me in an expanded role post-acquisition, and that Sandra's son James, who worked at Vantage, who I had not seen in 4 years, who Sandra talked about constantly as the pinnacle of professional success, had been the lead assessor. James had spent 3 days inside our operations, 3 days reading everything I had built. Sandra did not know any of this. She was still laughing, and then the front door opened, and James walked in. He stopped in the doorway. He saw his mother. He saw me, and the expression on his face, gone in less than a second. But I caught it completely. It was not surprise. It was recognition. The particular recognition of someone who has just walked into a room and understood immediately what is happening in it. He sat down. He did not speak for a moment. And Sandra, still performing, still holding the room, had not yet noticed that everything was about to change. "James," Sandra said, "when did you get here?" "Just now," he said. He was looking at me, not in a way that anyone else at the table would have noticed. But I noticed the particular look of someone running a calculation, assessing what has been said, what he has walked into, what the right response is. "I was just telling everyone about Claire's job," Sandra said, the warmth of a mother explaining something obvious to her son. "Director of Operations at Meridian." "I know," James said. Sandra smiled. "Isn't it funny how, Mom?" James said. One word. The table felt it immediately. The particular weight of one word spoken in a tone that says, "Stop. Whatever you are about to say, stop." Sandra stopped. She looked at her son. "I need to tell you something," James said. "About Meridian, about Claire. But before I tell you what James said, I need to take you back 3 weeks, to the operational assessment. Vantage had sent a team of 4 people to evaluate Meridian before the acquisition finalized. Standard procedure. The acquiring company sends specialists to verify that what they are buying is what they believe they are buying, that the systems are real, that the numbers are accurate, that the operational infrastructure is as strong as the reports suggest. James had led that team. I had not known until he walked through our front door on a Monday morning, and we looked at each other across the reception area with the simultaneous recognition of two people who share a family history and have just found themselves in a professional situation neither anticipated. We had both recovered within 3 seconds. We had proceeded professionally. Over 3 days, James and his team had gone through everything, every system, every process, every piece of operational documentation I had built and maintained and refined over 9 years. They had asked hard questions. I had answered everyone. On the 3rd day, the last day of the assessment, in the debrief session where the assessment team shares preliminary findings, James had looked at me across the conference table and said something I had not expected. "I owe you an apology," he said. "For what?" I said. "For every conversation I've had with my mother about your job," he said. "For not correcting her. For knowing that she talked about you the way she did and saying nothing." I looked at him. "You didn't know what I actually did," I said. "I should have asked," he said, "instead of assuming she was right." That conversation had lasted 8 minutes. It had cost him something, I could see that. The particular cost of someone acknowledging that they have allowed a comfortable assumption to stand when they could have questioned it. I had respected him for it. Now he was sitting at his mother's dinner table 11 days later, and the cost was about to be paid in a different currency. "Mom," James said, "I led the operational assessment at Meridian." Sandra blinked. "What?" "The acquisition," he said. "Vantage acquiring Meridian. I led our team. 3 days. Full operational review." Sandra looked at me, then back at James. "I didn't know you were involved." "I spent 3 days," James said, "going through everything Claire has built at that company. Every system, every process, every piece of infrastructure that allowed Meridian to grow from 40 employees to 280. The table was completely silent. "And I need you to understand something," he said. "What Claire does is not office management. It is not scheduling. It is not ordering supplies." He paused. "It is the reason Meridian was worth acquiring. Our CEO said that specifically, in those words. The operational infrastructure is what made this acquisition valuable." Sandra's wineglass was in her hand. She was not drinking from it. "Claire built that infrastructure," James said. "Director of Operations is not a fancy title. It is the title of the person who built what we just paid a significant amount of money to acquire." The fork was on the table now. Sandra was looking at me. I was looking back. And the room, the 8 people, the Sunday lunch, the comfortable assumptions of 9 years, was very, very quiet. Sandra said nothing for a long moment. The particular silence of someone who has been certain of something for 9 years and has just been handed documentation that the certainty was wrong. I did not fill the silence. I had spent 9 years not filling silences for Sandra. I was comfortable with one more. "I didn't know," she said finally. "I know you didn't," I said. "Why didn't you ever—" "Because you never asked," I said. "You decided what I did and you kept the decision. Every time I was in this room, you made the same comment in different words. And I let it go because correcting you at dinner tables was not how I wanted to spend my energy." "Where did you want to spend it?" she said. "Building the thing that was worth acquiring," I said. She looked at her wineglass, then back at me. "That was very patient of you," she said. "It wasn't patience," I said. "It was priority. The work was the priority, not the comment." James beside me said nothing. He had done what he needed to do, not to humiliate his mother, not to perform a correction for the table, simply to tell the truth, in a room where a comfortable untruth had been living for too long. Lunch continued. Differently, Sandra asked me 4 questions during the rest of the meal. Real questions, specific, about the acquisition, about the operational work, about what the expanded role at Vantage would involve. The questions of someone revising a map they have been using incorrectly. I answered all of them. Directly, completely, without the careful vagueness I had been using for 9 years because the direct version had not felt worth giving. It felt worth giving now. James drove me home afterward. We sat outside my building for a moment. "She's not a bad person," he said. "I know," I said. "She just decided something and never revisited it." "Most people do," he said. "Yes," I said. "Until they have to." He nodded. "The expanded role," he said. "Advantage. You know the CEO specifically requested you." "I heard," I said. "He doesn't do that," James said. "Request specific people. I've been there 6 years. I've never seen him do that." I looked at him. "Then I'd better not disappoint him," I said. He smiled. "You won't," he said. "I've seen your work. You absolutely won't." I went inside. I sat at my kitchen table for a while. I thought about 9 years of Sunday lunches, about forks put down, about the particular discipline of someone who has decided that the work is the answer to every comment, that building the thing is more powerful than defending it, that the right room eventually arrives, that the son who knows better eventually walks through the door. I thought about Sandra's face when James said at us the operational infrastructure is what made this acquisition valuable, about the fork on the table, about 9 years of a comfortable assumption meeting 3 days of documentation. Here is what 9 years and a Sunday lunch and a son who walked through a door at exactly the right moment taught me. The people who mock what you do are not watching what you build. They are watching the title, the business card, the surface version of a thing they have decided not to look at more closely. And every time you let it pass, every time you pick up your fork and take a bite and say nothing, you are not shrinking. You are choosing to put your energy into the work instead of the argument, choosing to let the acquisition speak instead of the dinner table, choosing to wait for the son who knows better to walk through the door. He always walks through eventually. Make sure the work is ready when he does. She mocked my job title for 9 years at every Sunday lunch, and then her son walked through the door and went completely quiet because he had spent 3 days inside everything I had built, and he knew exactly what it was worth.